It is 5 May 1982, west of the Falklands in the cold South Atlantic. Two pairs of Argentinian A-4 Skyhawks race just above the sea, hidden in the folds of dark water and low islands. They are already inside British missile range. There is no climbing now, no turning back. Fuel and distance give them enough for one serious attack run, nothing more. If they pull up even for a second, they die. Captain Pablo Carballo leads the formation, his old Skyhawk shuddering as it slices the air. Ahead, the low line of the Falklands rises out of the gray sea, their shield and their trap. He knows the odds. Old jets, simple bombs, no radar, no warning receivers, against modern British warships with long-range missiles and computer-driven radars. And yet he is here because the Islas Malvinas are already in Argentinian hands. To keep them, those ships out there must die. Carballo glances at his fuel, at the coastline, rushing closer, then back outside. He presses the transmit switch, his voice calm over the tension. Entering their range, he says to his men, "Don't climb for any reason." Behind him, Lieutenant Carlos Rinke holds station off his wing, the first element of the attack. Further back, one is Lieutenant Mariano Velasco and Ensign Jorge Nelson Barrionuevo follow in trail. Their own pair of Skyhawks gripping the sea as closely as they can. All four are low, too low for comfort, but that is the only altitude that keeps them alive. Out to seaward, HMS Coventry rides the gray swell Type 40, 2 destroyer, her tall mast and long white hull visible for miles. Somewhere beyond, HMS Broadsword, a Type 20, 2 frigate, keeps station in company. On Coventry's bridge, Captain David Hart-Dyke stands with his men at a state just short of battle. The air is tense, coiled. Earlier, British Special Forces passed a warning. Argentinian jets have launched from the mainland. A raid is coming. He knows 2 British warships have been pulled in closer to the Islands' own Coventry and Broadsword to provide radar cover and missile protection for the landings and troops ashore. That move brings them dangerously close to the clutter of land, radar shadows, and the envelope where their long-range Sea-Dart missiles struggle. But the troops need protection, so Coventry sits out here, guarding the flank, Hart-Dyke fully aware that the enemy will be hunting him. He does not yet know that his ship on this afternoon is the target. Deep inside Coventry's operations room, the dim red light glows over screens and consoles. Radar operators stare at the scopes, sweeping arcs of green over the South Atlantic. Fingers rest close to switches, waiting. Then a voice snaps out, tight and sharp. 4 contacts bearing 225, range 30. 4 blips bloom on the display, well out to the west, low and fast. The room stiffens, this is it. On the bridge, the report reaches Hart-Dyke in seconds. He does not hesitate. Action stations, all hands to action stations. Alarms erupt through Coventry, bells and klaxons mixing with shouted orders. Men sprint to posts drilled into muscle memory. Watertight doors swing closed and are dogged shut. Hatches slam. Out on deck, the tall twin, rail launcher of the Sea-Dart system, begins to slew heavy machinery turning with deliberate menace. Radars above it rotate and tilt, searching, locking, calculating. Coventry's job is to kill attacking aircraft long before they reach bomb range. That is what Sea-Dart is for. But out over the black-green sea, the Skyhawks are already adapting. Carballo brings his pair down and in towards the islands, toward Pebble Island. Isla de Bourbon to the Argentini. It's a low mass of land that juts into the gray water. He uses it like a wall. Isla de Bourbon ahead, he calls. Keep low and follow me. He dips even closer, hugging the contours where land meets sea. The altimeter winds down. His jet shivers as it cuts through disturbed air rolling off the shore. Behind him, Rinke follows, eyes locked on Carballo's tail, copying every movement. Their instruments are simple, their only shield is terrain. The Skyhawks' noses carry no radar. Their cockpits have no modern threat receivers. To them, the enemy is an idea, a direction, and a time. They trust that if they stay low enough, they will not exist on British screens until it is too late. On Coventry, the radar picture shifts. Contacts now bearing 230, range 23 low level, the operator calls. The 4 returns slide across the scope. Low altitude figures appear, then begin to fade. merging with the smear of land clutter as the aircraft slip in behind Pebble Island. Contacts lost over Pebble Island, another voice says, frustration obvious. On the bridge, Hart-Dyke's jaw tightens. He knows exactly what that means. Pebble Island is too close. The Sea Dart missile system has a minimum range. It needs a certain distance for the missile to leave the launcher, acquire the target, and for the guidance to function safely. Targets that pop up too close cannot be engaged. If the Argentinians are masked now and then break cover inside that invisible inner ring, they will get only one, maybe two chances at a shot, if they get any chance at all. He turns toward the communications console. Broadsword, what is your status? He demands over the UF link. A short distance away, AM's broadsword knifes through the same gray water. Sea Wolf missiles on her decks instead of Sea Dart. Short range, highly agile, they are made for exactly the kind of clo Sin defense Coventry cannot provide. Her ops room buzzes as the message comes through. Broadsword's men are already alert, already staring into the glare of their own radar screens, knowing that if anything gets past Coventry, they will be the last barrier. Back behind Pebble Island, the low Argentinian formation races along the coast, still shielded from brightish radar by the curve of land and the limitations of Sea Dart's line of sight. Carballo checks his watch, his fuel, the shoreline. Every second counts. Every mile flown at high speed, low level, burns precious fuel that he cannot spare for dogfights or diversions. He has enough for a single, committed run on the ships, then a turn back for home. If something goes wrong, there is no orbiting, no second attempt. At around 10 nautical miles, the land opens, and the line of the sea stretches towards the horizon. There, faint and gray against the water, two silhouettes emerge, brightish warships. Carballo's heartbeat quickens, but his hands stay steady on the stick. Starting the attack, he calls. Behind, Rinke's voice answers, tight but controlled. Good luck, Captain. The two jets break from the land's edge and charge out over open water. Throttles pushed forward, engines straining. Speed builds, the altimeters barely above zero, the world a blur of white, tipped waves racing beneath them. On Coventry, alarms of a different tone begin to sharpen. Two hostiles bearing 192 low level, the radar operator cries. The first pair have broken out of the radar shadow. Two clear contacts now show inbound, very low, closing fast. In the same instant, another voice cuts in across the ops room and up to the bridge. Captain, friendly aircraft 20 miles out. Harrier on cap, in the firing zone. Hart-Dyke feels the constraint like a hand around his throat. Enemy jets are coming in at low altitude, and one of his own sea Harriers is also in the same sector of sky. Rules of engagement demand caution. Identification is vital. Does he risk holding fire to protect the Harrier and give the attackers a free run? Or does he shoot on the radar picture and trust that the Harrier will be turned aside in time? The distance ticks down second by second. There is no time for perfect clarity. Turn the Harrier away, he orders sharp, shoot missiles. In the Sea Dart control console, operators move rapidly, trying to lock the inbound Skyhawks. But the geometry is bad. The targets are skimming so low that their returns flicker in and out, merging with sea clutter. The missile guidance systems struggle to hold a firm track. The firing crews wait for a solid lock tone. It does not come. Out over the sea, Carballo's cockpit shakes. The canopy is flecked with salt from the spray. His jet is kicking up. He is flying so low now that the jet's wake is carving the water, the ocean tipping and slapping beneath. He knows this altitude is a double-edged sword. Any mistake means instant death in the sea, but every foot he steals from the sky makes the brightish radar's job harder. He is betting his life on the radars failing first. On Coventry, men can feel the seconds closing in. The Sea Dart system still refuses to give a stable lock. The extremely low altitude of the attackers and the waves rising up between them and the ship play havoc with the radar returns. Around Hart-Dyke, the destroyer's steel seems to hum with restrained energy. Missiles sit ready in their launchers. Crews are waiting for the word, and yet the one thing they need a clean lock will not appear. He can do nothing but wait and hope that Broadsword's Sea Wolf will catch what Sea Dart cannot. On Broadsword, Lookouts are the first to see the attackers with their naked eyes, gray shapes flickering over white spray. The Skyhawks are so close together, flying with such precision, that Sea Wolf's radar initially tags them as a single contact. In the ops room, the operators lean forward as the system declares a firm track. Target locked, someone says. The Sea Wolf launcher slews, eager for the shot. Out ahead, Carballo and Rinke knife towards the masts and superstructure of Coventry and Broadsword, which are now growing rapidly in their windscreens. Then, on Broadsword's radar display, the single blip suddenly splits. Two precise, separate sets of coordinates appear. You close together too fast, and the computer throws an error. The fire control logic, designed for clear, discrete targets, now has to process two overlapping tracks almost simultaneously. To the horrified operators, the system simply freezes. The missiles are not responding. Someone shout. Restart them, comes the immediate answer. They begin the reboot sequence, fingers flying over switches. But missile systems do not restart at the speed of human panic. Power cycles, software reinitializes, the launcher waits for orders that take long, precious seconds to arrive. There is no time on Coventry's bridge, lookouts burst into frantic shouts. Aircraft portside, very low. Men rush to the bridge wings, some raising binoculars, others just staring, as the Argentine jets flash into sight. The pair of small, fast, determined shapes roaring in across the sea. On Coventry's upper decks, sailors swing the 20 mounts and the bigger 4.5-inch main gun toward the threat. Manual sights, local switches, and emergency procedures cut in as the sophisticated primary missile defense falters. Engage with guns, the order echoes. Deck guns open up, heavy booms reverberating through the hull. The air fills with the ripping crack of Twentum fire and the sharper, desperate crackle of smaller caliber weapons. Men who, minutes ago, were standing by now press rifles and machine guns against chests and shoulders, leaning into the recoil as they fire at specks racing over whitecaps. From his cockpit, Carballo sees the brightest fire start to walk towards him. Tall plumes of white water leap up where shells smash into the sea. Tracer lines arch out, seeking. He reads the pattern like a language. They are correcting, homing in. The bulk of Coventry is looming ahead, big, white, and bristling with antennas and guns. Beyond, lower in the water, he can make out the darker shape of Broadsword. A direct run on Coventry is suicide now. He senses it in his bones. The arcs of fire crossing in front of him, the ship's angle relative to his line of approach. It all feels wrong. They are not going to make that attack work. Change to the other one. He snaps, switching instinctively to the more vulnerable-looking target. He hauls the stick slightly, drawing his aircraft out of Coventry's most intense line of fire, and turning the attack axis toward Broadsword instead. Rinke follows without a word, the pair of Skyhawks howling past Coventry's side, close enough for men on deck to see the pilot's helmets flash by. They line up their pass on Broadsword in seconds. The frigate's decks are alive with men and weapons, but her primary missile system is still in the middle of its enforced restart cycle. Sea Wolf remains mute. Carballo's thumb finds the bomb release. His jet shudders as the 1-0 pounders drop from their pylons. Rinke does the same. Two massive bombs fall away, gray cylinders vanishing down towards the churning surface. For a fraction of a second, everything hangs. Then the bombs strike the water. Instead of plunging deep, the angle and velocity cause the heavy weapons to skip, bouncing off the sea's surface and arcing back up into the air like monstrous skipping stones. On Broadsword, sailors see it happen in real time. Huge shapes slamming into the water, leaping and then skimming towards them, each bounce bringing them closer. One bomb skips twice, loses momentum, and then noses down into the sea just short of the frigate. It vanishes without detonation, swallowed by the ocean. The other continues its deadly dance. It hits the water once more, then slams straight into Broadsword's side. Metal shrieks as it punches through the hull plating, ricochets upwards through the ship's innards, and bursts out through the deck in an explosion of steel and splinters. But there is no flash, no fireball, no blast wave. The bomb, its fuse unarmed or malfunctioning, flies on, tumbling end over end as it sails out over the opposite side of the ship, and falls uselessly into the sea. On Carballo's radio, there is a stunned silence. In his cockpit, he watches for the telltale flower of fire on the frigate's flank, the rising tower of smoke. Nothing, he feels a sharp, hollow punch of disappointment in his chest. He has threaded his way through radar, missiles, and gunfire, placed a heavy bomb into the side of a British warship at suicidal range, and the weapon has failed him. He banks away, heart pounding, mind torn between frustration and the knowledge that he is still alive. Behind him, the second pair of Skyhawks are closing. They are not done yet. Carballo and Rinke streak away from the British ships, still hugging the sea, the adrenaline only now catching up with them. In the mirrors and through quick glances over their shoulders, they see Broadsword receding, a neat white streak of torn metal along her side where the dud bomb tore through. No smoke, no fire, no kill. It gnaws at Carballo, but the mission is not only his now. Behind, the second pair are coming in. One is Lieutenant Mariano Velasco and Ensign George Nelson Barrionuevo. Their bombs are different, smaller 250-kilogram weapons, less destructive than the big 1,000-pounders, but with fuses and release gear that the Argentinians trust more. Velasco flies in their wake, using the same route, the same terrain, the same razor, thin margin above the sea. His hands are light on the stick, but his jaw is clenched tight inside his helmet. Somewhere ahead, he knows, the first pair have just tested the British defenses. Now it is his turn to press the attack home. On Coventry, the radar picture has cleared of the first wave. Operators in the dim, lit ops room scan the sector, tension still high. They know the Argentinians prefer to come in flights. One attack is almost never just one attack. Moments later, more contacts appear. 4 contacts again, Captain. All 4, back on scope, a controller reports. The system now shows both the retreating first pair and the second pair inbound. The geometry is complex, the threat is very simple. Hart-Dyke reacts instantly. Hard starboard turn, bring the ship round. If Sea dart a shot at all of them. Coventry heels over as her helm responds. The deck tilts, men feel the shift under their boots as the destroyer swings, presenting her missile arcs more favorably toward the fresh inbound threat. In the Sea Dart control area, operators scramble for a new engagement solution. Among the 4 returns, Velasco's aircraft stands out by position and closing speed. Computers assign priority. We have lock on 1 inbound bearing steady, low level, the missile director calls. Hart-Dyke does not waste time savoring the moment. Engage, shoot. Out on deck, the Sea Dart launcher tilts and steadies. A missile stands ready, long, white, predatory. There is a flash and a thunderous roar as the motor ignites. The weapon leaps from the rails, trailing thick gray smoke, arcing into the sky and then dipping towards the low contact. In his cockpit, Velasco sees the launch. A bright spark on the horizon near the British destroyer's mast. A sudden white plume as the missile claws into the air. Training takes over in an instant. Missile launch, he shouts, though Barrionuevo needs no warning. Both pilots press their aircraft lower still, pushing their luck against the waves. The altimeter sinks to numbers they would never choose in peacetime. Their eyes flick between the looming British ships and the treacherous moving surface beneath them. On Coventry's radar screens, the low contact slides down into the noise. Sea clutter blooms. The return that had been Velasco's aircraft phrase, and then disappears entirely behind the horizon and the curvature of the sea. Target loss dropped below the radar, the operator says, voice tight. The Sea Dart's guidance system, suddenly denied its target, continues on its last known vector. On Velasco's right side, a white spear of smoke sides through the air, level but now blind. The missile passes some 500 meters away, an unmistakable shape at terrifying speed, surging on into empty sky. He watches it streak away for a fraction of a second, just long enough to register that it has missed. Then his gaze snaps back to the British destroyer ahead. HMS Coventry is now the entire world in front of his canopy. On Broadsword, they hear and feel Coventry's missile launch as a distant thunder, see the thick plume twisting into the gray sky. In their ops room, the focus is different. Sea Wolf is still coming back to life. The earlier glitch from the first attack forced a restart. and that reboot cost them their shot at Carballo and Rinke. Now, with the second flight bearing down, the race is on again. Human fingers against boot, top sequences, enemy closure rate against system readiness. Sailors hunch over consoles, muttering half, prayers half, curses, come on, someone breathes as the system checks tick across the screens. Then suddenly the displays shift. Radar sweeps paint fresh returns. Whoa, low level contacts inbound fast. We have them, the operator calls, relief and urgency mixed. 2 targets, close, low. Sea Wolf's deck launcher whirs into action, turning to orient towards the threat. Green lights flick over to amber, then red as the system classifies, prioritizes, and declares a lock. Target locked, Sea Wolf ready, comes the report. On their screens, the 2 Skyhawks are clear. A solution exists. The weapon is finally ready to do the job it was designed for. And then, in front of the launcher's line of fire, a large, white hull moves. On the Sea Wolf display, a bigger shape slides across the engagement axis Coventry, still turning to try to face the attackers and bring her own systems to bear, now physically interposes herself between Broadsword and the incoming Argentinian jets. The operator stares in disbelief. "God admit," he shouts. The Coventry is in the way, the angle is bad. Launching now would mean firing directly at their own destroyer's stern. No captain will authorize that. On Broadsword's bridge and in her ops room, the realization hits like ice water. In their rush to maneuver for better positions, trying to cover all sectors and get every system into play, the 2 brightest ships have masked each other. Broadsword's captain orders his ship to turn to side, step for a clear shot, but the Skyhawks are too fast, too close. Sea Wolf cannot shoot through Coventry, and the window for a clean line of fire vanishes in seconds. From Velasco's cockpit, the geometry resolves very differently. He sees 2 warships almost in a line, one slightly ahead and to the side of the other. Coventry is the more prominent silhouette, tall mast forward 4, 5-inch gun, the characteristic blocky lines of a modern destroyer. That is his target. On Coventry's bridge and upper decks, men now see the Argentinian aircraft unmistakably. Sleek, compact jets coming in at head height, just above the waves, growing rapidly larger. Hart-Dyke knows the last line of his air defense is now not a missile system, but metal and people. All turrets open fire, the order goes out harsh and clear. Below, the 4-5-inch main gun in its white turret responds, swinging toward the sea-level target. Inside, the automatic feed slams shells into the breach. The gun fires, heavy rounds streaking out over the water. But something is wrong. The shells plunge into the sea short of the approaching aircraft, high plumes marking where they hit. Adjustment corrections feed in, the gun fires again. The pattern repeats. The men watching, expecting the rounds to walk onto the target, quickly realize the shots are going low and wide. The main gun sights are not aligned correctly for this extreme close, low-angle anti-air shot. It is built primarily to fire at range at an appreciable elevation, not to hit jets skimming the wave tops almost on top of the ship. At the same time, Coventry's Twentum anti-air gun begins its sharp, harsh bark, tracks swinging frantically across the sea to lead the fast, moving silhouettes. For a few seconds, it fires in ragged bursts. Then the weapon coughs, shudders, and stops. Gun jam, the crew shout, voices frustrated, hands already moving to clear stoppages. They work feverishly, but both time and distance are against them. Clearing a jammed cannon is not a 2-second job, not when the ship is rolling and vibrating, not with enemy jets seconds away. Across Coventry's decks and superstructure, sailors grab whatever weapons they can. Lacking functioning heavy guns, they fall back on machine guns and rifles. Men lean over guardrails and bulkheads, emptying magazines, sending streams of tracers and bullets into the air and across the waves in the direction of the incoming A-4s. The sea between ship and jets churns, peppered by impacts. White splashes leap up everywhere. The noise is a continuous roar engines, gunfire, shouted orders, alarms. Still, the Skyhawks keep coming. On Broadsword, they watch helplessly as Coventry, now inadvertently masking their missiles, takes the brunt of the oncoming assault. Their own guns are spitting fire, but the angle and distance are far from ideal. The best weapon they have for stopping this attack, Sea Wolfie's silent, blocked not by enemy jamming or technical failure now, but by the simple, brutal geometry of ships and flight paths. Inside Coventry, the call goes out across the ship's internal communications. Brace, brace, brace. It crackles through what remains of the intercom system, echoes in compartments where men hunch down, grab hold of pipes, rails, or anything bolted down. On decks and in passageways, sailors drop to the floor, cover their heads, press themselves into any available cover. On the bridge, Hart-Dyke and his team hold on to whatever they can, eyes still fixed on the incoming aircraft that almost fill the armored windows. In the cockpit of his A-4, Velasco sees the world narrow to the ship's gray, white hull and the spikes of flame and tracers throwing past him. He lines up the center mass of the destroyer in his gun sight, steadying his breathing, fighting the urge to flinch as bullets snap past the canopy and sea spray lashes at the glass. At the last possible moment, he squeezes the trigger for his cannons. Twin Twentum guns open up, their recoil vibrating through the jet. A dense stream of shells rips out, trailing a faint line of gray smoke as they march up Coventry's side, across her decks, and into her superstructureless metal and equipment shattering under. The strike, he holds the trigger down as long as he dares, walking the fire across the target. Then, with the ship now almost under his nose, he releases the trigger and hits the bomb release. The 250-kilogram bombs drop from his wings, two dark shapes tumbling clear before stabilizing in their arc. Time stretches. From inside Coventry, men feel rather than see the shapes come in. The first sign is not light or sound, but impact. Two heavy thuds, deep and wrong, resonate through the hull. Not the shattering crack of a detonation, but a hollow, near, dull punching sound metal meeting metal with enormous force. The bombs pierce Coventry's outer skin, punching through the hull plates. Structural members groan and bend. Compartments are smashed open as the bombs plow through the innards of the destroyer. One tears into the area beneath the bridge and operations spaces. The other drives deep toward the forward engine room. On deck and in compartments close to the path of the bombs, men are thrown off their feet by the impacts alone. Screams and shouts mix with the ringing of deformed metal and the sudden hiss of torn pipework. But in that first instant, there is no explosion. Velasco's bombs have not yet detonated. Overhead, Barrionuevo flashes past, his aircraft screaming over Coventry's deck. He hits his own bomb release switch, but nothing happens. The bombs cling stubbornly to his pylons, release gear failing to function. He soars over the ship still fully loaded, his attack half executed. Seconds tick by impossibly long. On Coventry, men cautiously begin to lift themselves from the deck. The ship still stands, listing slightly perhaps, but not blown apart. There is confusion, disbelief. On the bridge and in the operations room, officers and ratings struggle to understand what has happened. They felt the hits. They know the bombs are inside the ship somewhere. But without obvious explosions, the situation is unclear. Damage reports start to come in over the intercom, voices strained but coherent. Bridge, this is one begins. The report never finishes. Deep within Coventry's structure, the bomb fuses complete their delay cycles. One in the forward machinery spaces, one under the operations complex. The milliseconds of calculation end. Two massive explosions erupt almost simultaneously. The first detonates beneath and just forward of the bridge and ops room, tearing a jagged hole in the destroyer's side and blowing upward through compartments that house some of the ship's most critical brains, the computer room, operations spaces, and control centers. Fire, smoke, and blast rush down passageways and up through ladders, extinguishing life and equipment alike. The second blast rips through the forward engine room, destroying vital machinery, rupturing fuel lines, and spraying burning oil and debris. Electrical power fails almost instantly. Propulsion dies. The systems that keep Coventry alive and maneuvering are now maimed or destroyed. On the upper decks and in the ops room, the world goes white, then black. Captain Hart-Dyke is thrown from his feet, the violence of the blast on the starboard side beneath him ripping across the bridge like a fist. Glass shatters, consoles fall, men are hurled into bulkheads and deckheads. One moment, he is reaching for a microphone. The next, he is on the deck, ears ringing, lungs burning with smoke. the entire world a chaos of noise and confusion. Lights flicker, then die. Emergency fixtures struggle to come on. Somewhere outside, the proud white hull of HMS Coventry begins to list more sharply, a visible wound in the sea. In the South Atlantic sky above, Velasco and Barrionuevo roar past and away, noses already pulling up just enough to avoid the water, engines pushed for speed beyond the target. Velasco glances back and sees what every attack pilot wants to see, his target wrapped in smoke. Dark, oily plumes billow up from Coventry's side, rising into the gray air. On the radios, Argentinian voices crackle with exhilaration and disbelief. Woo, ha ha ha, boom, chi, gall, viva la patria. In their cockpits, hearts pound as they trade quick shouts of triumph. Against daunting odds, under the guns and missiles of a modern fleet, they have hit and hurt a brightish destroyer. They do not know the details of the damage yet. They do not need to. The smoke says enough. Below, inside Coventry, there is no sense of victory. There is only the raw, immediate struggle to survive. Inside Coventry, the world is broken into fragments of sound and sensation. Screams, the crackle of flames, the deep, painful groan of steel under stress. Captain David Hart-Dyke lies on the deck of the bridge, half, stunned, dust and smoke curling around him. His ears ring with a high, steady tone that almost drowns everything else. For a moment, he cannot tell up from down. Gradually, the shape of the bridge returns. Consoles are wrecked, glass is shattered, metal twisted. Men lie where they were thrown, some moving, some terribly still. Smoke pours in from below, out windows and torn bulkheads. He tries to breathe and coughs instead. The air tastes of burning plastic, fuel, and hot metal. Somewhere deep in the ship, fire roars. He forces himself to move, to push up off the deck. As he does, he becomes aware of a strange tilt in the floor. Coventry is listing, the whole hull leaning to one side. He reaches for the intercom microphone out of instinct. Bridge to nothing answers. The handset is dead. Just another piece of lifeless gear in a bridge that has lost most of its power and a good part of its structure. He realizes then that whatever was hit has killed their main communication systems. The nerve center that coordinates everything operations room, computer systems, command circuit has been savaged by the explosion under the bridge. If Coventry is to be saved at all, if her people are to live, it will not be because of a central voice telling everyone what to do. It will be because every sailor knows the drill. Hart-Dyke staggers toward the nearest exit. The bridge is filling with smoke, thick, swirling, disorienting. The ship creaks beneath him as metal tears and buckles. Heat radiates up from below. Outside the shattered windows, smoke from the hull rises in dark columns, carried away by the wind across the gray sea. He ducks into a passageway, finding it dimly lit by flickering emergency lights. The corridor is choked with haze, alarms wailing somewhere in the distance, their precise tones blurred by damage and echo. He moves by touch and training, hand along bulkheads, boots stepping over debris. The list of the ship forces him to lean awkwardly as he walks, one shoulder brushing the high side of the passage. He passes men in breathing gear heading the other way, fire parties, damage control teams, already moving toward the heart of the ship where the flames are. In the compartments below, the forward engine room is a hell of twisted metal and darkness. The bomb's explosion having demolished machinery, ruptured lines, and stripped away electrical power. Fire eats at insulation, and fuel smoke claws its way along ducts and open hatchways. Above, near the operation spaces, the blast has torn a ragged wound through the ship's side and up into the computer room and ops center. Many of the men who had been guiding the battle moments before are now dead or gravely wounded. Terminals and consoles that once showed the air picture are shattered and smoldering. Yet, amid that carnage, pockets of order exist. Sailors drag shipmates out of smoke, filled compartments half, carrying half, pulling them into slightly clearer air. Others set up boundary cooling, spraying water on, to hot bulkheads to keep fire from spreading. Medics improvise triage stations in any flat space they can find, bandaging, checking pulses, giving comfort where they can. Hart-Dyke hears fragments of shouted reports as he makes his way along. Engine room gone, fire in ops, no power, no propulsion, flooding forward. He knows what that combination means. A destroyer like Coventry cannot survive long without power or control over fires. not with holes blown in her side and water pouring in. He presses on, driven by something beyond conscious thought. He has to get topside. He has to see the state of his ship, then do what a captain must fight for her as long as there is any chance, and if that fails, save as many of his men as possible. After what feels like an ordeal of smoke and tilting steel, he finally finds a stairway that leads up and out. Pushing open the hatch, he emerges into the cool, sharp air of the South Atlantic. The contrast is shocking. One moment choking in hot fumes, the next feeling the cold wind on his face. The deck beneath his feet is no longer level. Coventry has a noticeable list. Smoke boils from a gaping wound in her starboard side. The hole under the bridge is obscene in its size, a jagged bite taken out of the destroyer's flank. Further forward, heat shimmers above the area of the engine room, but what arrests him most is not the damage. It is the behavior of his crew. Instead of blind panic, he finds controlled urgency. Sailors move with purpose, following procedures they have drilled over and over in less desperate times. Life rafts are being prepared, some already swung out, canisters armed to inflate. Life jackets and survival suits are being handed out and forced on to those who are shocked or slow to react. Teams help the injured onto the open deck, laying them out and tending to them as best they can. Others hurry below again, grabbing more men from cabins and compartments filling with smoke. Voices call out assignments, muster points, checks for missing names. Amid the listing hull and black smoke, there is discipline. Hart-Dyke feels a surge of fierce pride push through the pain and disorientation. His men are doing exactly what they were trained to do. He tries again to reach for any functioning communications gear, to coordinate, to see if there is any chance of stabilizing the ship. The reality soon becomes clear. The list is worsening. The explosions have gutted too many critical spaces. Coventry is not going to stay afloat. Somewhere along the command chain, the decision forms, save the people. The order to abandon ship spreads, not in a single shouted sentence over a working intercom, but repeated voice to voice, passed from officer to petty officer to seaman, echoing down damaged passageways and across damaged decks. Abandon ship, get to the rafts, move. On Broadsword, close by, they watch their consort dying. The frigate's crew have shifted in an instant from battle to rescue. Her captain maneuvers as close as he dares to the stricken Coventry, careful of both the list of the other ship and any remaining ordnance or hazards in the water. Helicopters, alerted and vectored in, beat their way through the low clouds and wind toward the scene, rotors thumping across the sea, ready to pluck men from rafts and cold water. On Coventry's sloping deck, Hart-Dyke moves among his people, helping where he can. He steadies men as they climb into lift rafts, shouts encouragement, checks that the wounded are carried or helped to the exits. He is bleeding himself, dazed and exhausted, but he refuses to leave while his crew are still aboard. The ship's angle grows steeper. The deck becomes something like a hillside, and movement across it shifts from walking to climbing. Men slip and scramble, clinging to railings and fixtures as they work their way to rafts or jump off points. Some of the lift rafts have already been launched, bobbing in the steel. Gray water below, filling quickly with orange suited figures. Others are still being deployed, hissing into full round shape as compressed gas unfurls them. Hart-Dyke feels the deck lurch beneath him, an unmistakable final kind of movement. Coventry is rolling. He ends up near the waterline as the destroyer heels over. In the confusion, in the rush to get every last man off, there comes a moment when he can do no more moving about, no more direct ordering. He finds himself on the hull as it rolls, metal now tilting toward the vertical. He is forced to sit, bracing himself, looking out over the sea where his men are already in the water or in rafts. All around, sailors are abandoning ship sliding down, jumping clear, swimming toward rafts and the relative safety they offer. Voices call across the water, helicopters circle and approach, carefully settling to hoist survivors out. For Hart-Dyke, time compresses. He looks along the length of what has been his command, now a wounded, dying thing. Smoke still pours from the torn compartments. Water slaps against steel that was never meant to meet the sea at that angle. Around him, the last few men near the hull drop away, making their escape. He waits until he is certain, until the deck, now more like a wall, holds no one else needing help, until all those who can leave have left. Only then does he allow himself to go. There is one final lifferaft nearby, the last chance for him to leave the ship that has been his responsibility. As befits a captain, he is last off. He lowers himself into the raft, leaving Coventry behind, and drifts slowly away from the upturned hull and the smoke of his ship. In the water around him, men in survival gear cluster, hauled aboard rafts, lifted up by the hovering British helicopters, or recovered by Broadsword, which now splits its attention between damage, control of her own superficial wounds, and the far more urgent task of pulling Coventry's crew from the sea. The South Atlantic is cold biting. Every minute in the water is dangerous, but the British crews move swiftly and methodically, just as trained. In the end, about 170 survivors are brought out of the water, and from the rafts HMS Broadsword, and by the British rescue helicopters that sweep back and forth over the patch of ocean, where Coventry has slipped away. The cost is still heavy. 19 men from Coventry do not make it out alive. They die in the blast, the fires, or the flooding that follows. Their absence is a weight felt by every survivor, by every rescuer. In the Argentinian Skyhawks, already far from the scene, fuel gauges are now the pilot's main worry. They turn for home, leaving behind the pillar of smoke that marks the place where they struck. Carballo and Rinke, their own bombs having failed to detonate, nevertheless know that the second wave has done what they could not. They hear the joy in Velasco's and Barrionuevo's voices over the radio and share in it, even as they nurse their elderly jets back across the long stretch of sea toward their base. Velasco and Barrionuevo push their engines, watching the fuel drop, calculating whether they will make land with anything to spare. Every mile is a tension. One by one, the 4 Skyhawks finally reach home soil. They enter the landing pattern, line up, and touch down, wheels screeching onto the runway. Each pilot brings his aircraft to a roll and stops, heart still racing, mind still partly back over the cold water where the British destroyer burned. Ground crews and fellow airmen cluster around them. There is elation cheers, shouts, embraces. All 4 pilots have returned alive from one of the most dangerous missions of the war. They have done what was asked. HMS Coventry is gone. Yet as reports filter in over the coming hours and days, a broader reality settles in. The loss of Coventry is a sharp blow to the British task force, a painful reminder that even with superior technology and training, they are not invulnerable in the cluttered, constrained battle space around the islands, but the strategic momentum of the conflict does not change. British forces continue their advance on the ground. The fleet adapts its dispositions, learns from the geometry that allowed Coventry and Broadsword to mask each other's fire, rethinks how close to risk ships against loaf, lying attacks skimming behind islands. The Argentinian pilots have achieved a tactical success that will be remembered and studied for decades. Low Napov, Earth ingress exploitation of radar shadows, a determined attack pressed home under fierce fire bombs placed with deadly accuracy. They have also learned the brutal limits of their own weapon stud fuses, unreliable release gear, the cruel few seconds between impact and detonation when lives hang in the balance. For the men on Coventry and Broadsword, and for the air crews who face them, this single clash on 25 May 1982 becomes etched in memory as one of those moments when war shrinks to a few seconds of decision and a few hundred meters of sea. Back on the day itself, as the sun lowers over the South Atlantic, the smoke from Coventry's wreckage slowly thins and drifts away. Liferafts and rescue helicopters complete their work. Survivors huddle aboard Broadsword, cold, shocked, alive. Captain Hart-Dyke, wounded and exhausted, carries the knowledge that he left his ship only when he could do no more for her, and that, despite the loss, the professionalism of his men saved many lives. Velasco, Barrionuevo, Carballo, and Rinke, back at their base, know that against modern missiles and guns they had, at most, one chance to strike. They took it, flying so low they skimmed the sea, never climbing, never turning away. The constraint that framed their mission's fuel for one attack, the need to stay below radar, the narrow window inside missile minimum ranges shaped everything that happened. In the end, this is a story of machines pushed to their limits. But even more, it is a story of people. Pilots betting their lives on a few meters of altitude. Sailors firing rifles at jets because their main guns have failed. Missile operators wrestling with systems that reboot too slowly, or cannot see low enough, or are blocked by their own side's hull. The fate of HMS Coventry on that May afternoon does not decide the Falklands War. Yet it shows in harsh detail how quickly a modern air-sea battle can tilt from control to chaos, from a clean radar picture and neat engagement plots to smoke, broken steel, and survival rafts on a cold, gray sea. If you've watched this far, which moment hit you hardest, Skyhawks gambling everything on that low, one-way approach, or the brightest crews fighting failing systems, and then carrying out textbook evacuation under fire? Let me know in the comments whether you think technology or human decision making mattered more in this battle, and which engagement you'd like to see next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next deep dive into modern air